Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to mini episode number 4 of the Don't Follow Me Home podcast. As always, this is Amber from the podcast, and tonight we have such a blessing. We have my husband Devin joining us, and our dog Chance is also on the bed. For ambiance, you're only seeing their silhouettes because I have the lights turned off, and I've got my spirit and water element candles going and some incense in my little cauldron. So keeping up with the theme of the mini episodes, we're going to talk about another urban legend tonight. Appropriately named, it is the urban legend of the dog boy from Arkansas. I say appropriately named because you might hear some panting in the background from our dog, and because our dog is joining us tonight. So, Devin has his hat on, so the shadows might make it difficult to see his facial expressions, but he has a drink in hand, sipping, ready to listen. So without further ado, get comfy, get cozy, and ready for the urban legend of the dog boy outside of Quitman, Arkansas. Just a heads up, this does have a little bit of backstory as well to it, so it starts off a little bit differently than some of our other urban legends that I've talked about. Some people who live in Clearborn County believe ghosts, including a World War I soldier and a family, haunt a Victorian-era home in downtown Quitman. Why so many restless spirits in a sleepy town like Quitman? It may have to do with the area's past, said Dr. Mike Barnett, a retired physician and member of the Heber Springs Historical Society. He said, Quitman is much older than almost any community in north central Arkansas. During the Civil War, it was a popular place for men to enlist in the army, he said. Until 1870, Quitman was a major trading center and an important crossroads. It was a halfway point for those traveling from Memphis to Little Rock or from Batesville to Conway. There were nice big houses and buildings there, he said. Longtime resident Nelda Kennedy says the Garrett family erected one of the Quitman's finer homes about 1890. Another local, Mary Nell Hollibird, recalled the Jackson family who lived in the house at 65 Mulberry Street. Benjamin Jackson lived there with his wife, who died when she was about 28 years old. Their son, Joseph, was born in 1898, served in World War I, and died at the age of about 21, Hollibird said. She also claims that Jackson's spirit is among those who remain in the house across the street from hers. In more recent years, the Garrett house has become notorious for its connection to a different family and has become known as the Bettis house. Floyd and Eileen Bettis moved into their large house in early 1950s. The couple, childless for many years, had a son, Gerald Floyd Bettis, in 1954, according to a local historian in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette archives. Gerald was a difficult child from early on, reported those who knew him. His parents were good people, but Gerald was a brat, vicious, and cruel, Hollibird said. Bettis also developed some unusual habits early on, including collecting cats and dogs. The neighbors claimed they could hear the howls and the screams of the animals, as Gerald was known to torture them in the home. His scary hobby earned him the name around town of Dog Boy. He would catch stray animals and torture them. We could hear them howl, said Hollibird. Kennedy agreed with Hollibird's assessment of Bettis. I had almost forgotten about all those cats and dogs he had, but he even added on to the house so he could keep more of them, she said. Kennedy also confirmed that Bettis had difficulties at school. Kids would pester him and take things away from him. It was like he wanted to be aggravated to get attention, she said. She cited one instance in which there was a large family reunion at Quitman City Hall. Gerald took one of those old chase lounges over there, like the ones that the Romans would lay back on. He got some grapes and laid down on it to eat them in front of everyone, she said. Bettis's actions allegedly turned more sinister. He kept his parents virtually imprisoned in the upstairs of that house, Hollibird said. He would feed them, but only when he decided it was time for them to eat, she said. By the time he was an adult, locals say Bettis towered over his elderly parents at 6'4" and weighed close to 300 pounds. It was also regularly reported that he beat up his father and even threw him out of an upstairs window one time during his teen years. Although he was in his 70s at the time, the elder Bettis hung onto the ledge until the local police showed up, Hollibird said. According to the Heber Springs Sun-Times, Floyd Bettis died in 1981 after an illness in his home. Others say he was pushed down the staircase and died of a broken neck. I was afraid of Gerald, Kennedy said. If you had ever seen his eyes, they seemed to glow at night. One time, he came over here and got on to us because we had trimmed a magnolia tree that overlapped into his backyard, she said. And when they started cleaning that house up, one of his uncles came to my house to borrow a gun because he was afraid that Gerald would get riled up, she said. No doubt Gerald was a frightening person. A neighbor, Nelda Kennedy, stated she was scared of him because of his eyes. If you had ever seen his eyes, she said in 2007, they seemed to glow at night. In the early 1980s, Eileen Bettis fell and broke her hip, requiring a trip to the hospital. A retired nurse, Hollibird, witnessed Bettis's treatment of his mother. He was slapping her around and telling her, "I'm going to have you arrested if you tell anyone what I did." Not long after this incident, Eileen Bettis was placed in adult protective services and removed from the home permanently. A little later, Gerald Bettis built a sunroom on the back of his house and sold the plants he grew, including marijuana, Hollibird said. Authorities arrested him based on this and his mother's testimony of her abuse. Bettis was put in prison in the late 1980s and died of a drug overdose. Arkansas Democrat-Gazette archives confirmed Gerald Floyd Bettis' death in May 1988 at age 34. When Eileen Bettis died in 1995, Hollibird's niece, Reba Carter, inherited the house. Not long after, there was an estate sale at the house. Carter later sold the house to Tony Weaver, a truck driver from Morgan. Weaver and his wife lived in the Bettis house for a couple of years. However, the Weavers experienced paranormal activity, and Karen Schillings, founder of the Central Arkansas Society for Paranormal Research, more easily known as Casper, after seeing a newspaper ad placed... I like that.
Yeah, I can tell.
After seeing a newspaper ad placed by Casper, Weaver's wife contacted Schillings. She said she would turn off all the lights before leaving to work a night shift, but when she returned, the lights would be back on, Schillings said. At first, the woman thought such actions were the result of an intruder. But then, more supernatural events began to happen. One time, pennies floated down the stairwell from the upstairs part of the house. The coins stopped and fell to the floor all at once right in front of her, Schilling said. And after 6 months of such occurrences, the wife was very scared and didn't want to live there anymore. Tony Weaver has also had his share of baffling incidents. One day, I was working on the house, and I saw a man looking through the foyer into the living room. He looked like a World War II soldier, World War I soldier, complete with the helmet. He looked so real, and when he walked into the living room, I ran after him, but no one was there, he said. Hollibird's nephew, Quinton White, and his wife, Stephanie, lived in the house in 2003. Strange things would happen on a regular basis. Like the toilet would flush on its own, Stephanie said. One day, Quinton was working on the house, and he was on his phone with her. He heard a crash upstairs, she said, and he went to find out what had happened. White had previously stacked a large pile of 2x4s on the floor. When he reached the upstairs room, he told his wife that the boards were all standing up straight, she said. The couple only lived there for a few months. Weaver, who still owns the Bettis house, continues to show the home to prospective buyers, so far with little success. Weaver said once he placed a new pair of sunglasses and a prescription medication on a table. During the time he was there, he said he became angry about his inability to sell the house and voiced his resentment, saying, "These darn spooks, I'm tired of taking care of this place." He said his comments apparently angered someone or something, as later both the glasses and the medicine were gone. If you bring somebody in there that the spirits, don't like, you'll feel chills and your hair will stand on end, he said. One lady, who was interested in buying the house, brought her young daughter with her. The woman told Weaver that her daughter was sensitive. While the women were walking around the home, the daughter stopped on the stairs and said she felt very sad. Another time, some prospective buyers saw a recliner in the home, flipped back on its own, like someone was sitting there. It stayed stuck like that the whole time they were looking at the place, he said. Yet another prospect brought their dog with them to see the house, but the animal refused to go inside. Always trust the dogs. Ed Munnerlin of Little Rock said he had an eerie encounter in the Bettis house this summer. A former pilot with Federal Express, Munnerlin has worked remodeling the home since May. He prefers to work on the house at night because he said too many people who are curious about the ghosts want to come in. He has also had several unexplainable incidents happen to him. I'm a rational person. I don't believe in the paranormal. But since I've been working on that place, I feel very uncomfortable, like someone's watching me, he said. He also claims to have seen spirits several times. When I pull up in the driveway of the house at night, I see a man looking down at me. He is dressed in a brown jacket and a bow tie, like from another time period. An extension to the house is where Munnerlin claims to have seen the ghost of Gerald Bettis looking at him several times. He was this huge, weird-looking cat with long brown hair, creepy eyes, and great big arms and hands. He walked right in front of me and glared at me, Munnerlin said. Right after I saw him, he walked through the hall and disappeared. Munnerlin said he also experienced what felt like cold wind blowing down his neck. Sometimes I hear something slam or someone walking across the floor, but I can't see anything. They let me know that they're there, he said. In 2005, Casper investigated the house. Schillings was the lead researcher on the case. We went there on 2 different occasions, she said. The first time, we noticed cold spots, 10 to 15 degrees cooler than the ambient temperature of the house. A very sensitive electromagnetic field detector was used that picks up all kinds of electromagnetic readings, and we picked up an energy force that had no explanations, she said. Schillings also reported that the team tracked an entity through the kitchen area, where one of the team members felt like someone touched him. When we went outside at one point to get some items from a car, we looked up and saw a face peering down at us, she said. All 3 of the Casper team members witnessed the face in the window, but it was confirmed that there was no one upstairs at the time, Schilling said. The second time, the team used a medium who got in touch with what seemed to be the spirit of Gerald Bettis, Schilling said. He cursed us and told us to get out. The team used videotape to document what they consider to be additional evidence of the paranormal activity, including orbs flying around the wall and unexplainable flashing lights, she said. Although footage of the ghost hunting expeditions was shot over the 2 occasions, Schilling said that the more spectacular tape is missing. Multiple attempts to locate the film failed. It was disconcerting, she said. Other people who have lived in the home have claimed to have seen a 300-pound man around 6 feet in height and animal-like features within the house. The man is said to walk straight to the hallway and disappear. The owners and passerbys of the home have also seen a man staring at them from a window. The scariest report comes from a person who claimed to have seen a man walking on all 4s coming down Mulberry Street. That earlier mention of those strange glowing eyes most likely led to supposed nocturnal sightings of a large creature sometimes still prowling the rooms and hallways of 65 Mulberry Street. All right, and that is the urban legend of the dog boy. So, again, I kind of think Arkansas was like, we need to get on this urban legend list.
Yeah,
What's our creepiest ghost story, right? Because urban legend or more ghost story. I don't know. What do you think, Devin?
Well, no. The I wonder if they have to disclose and that's why he can't sell, because he has to tell everybody about the creepy ghost killer dog person.
Maybe. I don't know. I didn't think about that. I feel like Arkansas
It didn't
probably
really say. I mean, what was he doing with these dogs is the question.
torturing them.
Well,
I looked up so many different articles on him, and there's no confirmation of like what the torture was. Like if he was, I don't even want to think about it. Chance, cover your ears. Like if he was dismembering them or doing like weird science experiments or just
other weird stuff.
Yeah, just poisoning them or your typical serial killer shit. But yeah, I don't know.
What do you think, Chance?
He says, keep him away from me. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, so if you're looking for a haunting in Arkansas, go to Quitman, Arkansas, and look up the Bettis
Because
house.
there is not much going on in Arkansas.
65 Mulberry Street. And maybe at night you'll get lucky or unlucky enough to see a large creature-like man on all fours with glowing eyes prowling the streets and glaring at you from the windows of the home.
Yeah, that wouldn't be creepy at all.
No, not at all.
Not